Hello, my name is Mike Ray, and welcome to another 5-minute message. This week I want to look at a verse in 2 Peter. It has an interesting phrase to it. The more we look at that phrase and understand it, the more important this actually becomes to us. The verse is in 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. He says, "His divine power has granted to us all things that pertain to life and godliness, through the knowledge of him who called us to his own glory and excellence, by which he has granted unto us his precious and very great promises, so that through them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that is in the world because of sinful desire." That's the phrase, being partakers of his divine nature. I mean, it sounds great. What does it mean? Well, when you actually look into the words, that first word, partaker, it talks about a partnership or sharing in something. So it's something that you do together or you have in common. That's a great way to say it, to have it in common. The divine or godly, and then the nature is natural characteristics. So what this is saying is that we are to be sharing in those same characteristics that God has. And what are those characteristics? He goes on to enumerate those. When he says in verse 5, "For this very reason, make every effort to supplement your faith with virtue, and with your virtue, knowledge, and knowledge with self-control, and self-control with steadfastness, and with steadfastness, godliness, and godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love." Those are those attributes that we want to share with God. So we want to have that same faith. In other words, the fidelity. He keeps his promises. We should be that faithful as well. The virtue of God, that moral goodness, that moral virtue that is who he actually is. We need to take on that same moral virtue in our lives. The knowledge, in other words, the word here is moral understanding, knowing the truths, knowing those things that are right and what's right to do. And to that self-control, that moral control over our own self, so that we can follow the teachings that God has. And then steadfastness. And steadfastness carries with it patience and consistency. We know God is patient, and I'm so thankful that he is. We need to show that same patience in our lives and with others, in godliness. And in this context, he's talking about the respect for God and his teaching, and then brotherly affection. When he's talking about brotherly affections, he's talking about respect and cherishing each other, holding each other in high esteem. And then he finishes with love. And that's that caring for our fellow man, putting others' needs above our own. That's love. And that's the love that God had and that Jesus demonstrated when he put above his own needs and his own comforts to come down to this earth in the form of man, to teach us, be an example for us, but then to sacrifice himself for us, for our sins, so that we might have our sins forgiven. That's the love that we need to demonstrate in our lives. How do we go about putting on all of these virtues, all of these, what they call Christian graces, into our lives? What we do so that we can be partakers of his divine character, is in Romans 12, chapter 2. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that by testing you may discern what the will of God is, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. In other words, we have to start thinking differently. Don't think the way the world does. Don't look at things the way the world looks at things, but look at things the way God looks at things. The big picture, that he created everything, that everything is from him, he loves it all, and so should we. May we all be partakers of the divine nature of God. Thank you for watching.
Glorify thy name.